Welcome to the Leader Impact podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world, dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make this show even better, please let us know. Best way to stay connected in Canada is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. If you're listening from outside of Canada, check out our website at leaderimpact.com. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is Joe Dipenta. Joe was the first hockey player to bring the Stanley Cup back to his hometown of Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia in 2007 as a member of the Anaheim Ducks, 2 years before Sidney Crosby did in 2009. At the time, he was part of a select group of 150 players who have won both the Stanley Cup and the Calder Cup, the championship trophy for the American Hockey League. During his hockey career, he also played for the Philadelphia Flyers, Atlanta Thrashers, Vancouver Canucks, and Buffalo Sabres organizations. After graduating from California State University, Joe moved home to pursue a career in nonprofit, working for organizations he is passionate about. Joe now resides in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia with his wife Jessica and 11-year-old daughter Chloe. Joe coaches his daughter's hockey team and volunteers his time at several local charities. Professionally, Joe is an EOS implementer, working with entrepreneurial leaders to give them more control over their businesses. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
That's funny when I say welcome to the show. It's like, you made the big show. Welcome to the show. This is the big show. I used to hear that as a kid. You know, all the hockey players, they all wanted the big show. So
yeah, I did experience the show.
You did. So did you actually, okay, and I apologize, I think you played in a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I won the Stanley Cup in 2007 with the Ducks.
Yeah, and I think that is a very low percentage of players that ever get that opportunity and then ever actually get to win.
It's something like 2% of NHL players win the Stanley Cup. So and if you then extrapolate that over all hockey players across Canada, it's in the hundreds of thousands, I think, of all the players that lace them up get to win the Stanley Cup. So pretty small odds. I was in the right place at the right time, and lots of great hockey players never won the Stanley Cup. And you're kind of like, wow, it's pretty surreal.
Yeah, that's is a great feat. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we're looking for a bit of your professional story and how you got to where you are today. So we're just wondering if you can share a couple of snapshots that were pivotal turning points in your journey.
Sure. In my hockey career or faith journey, or does
I think in your hockey career, I'd love to hear some of those, or just because, and then ultimately you're an EOS implementer. But I mean, we love hockey. We're from Canada.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So I had it pretty easy until I turned professional, and I say easy, but it wasn't easy. I had to put a lot of training and dedication that went into the sport, but easy from the perspective that I didn't face a lot of adversity. I pretty much made every team that I wanted to and had success, and was drafted to the NHL and was able to, any new team I joined, I was quickly able to gain the confidence of the coaches and my teammates. When I turned professional in 2000, the year 2000, I was now on a team that had older players that were in their 30s and a spread of ages, a number of players that were more talented than I was. And so it was just it was a challenging year. And I remember I had a coach that is a defense coach, and he was like a little bit adversarial when being around him, and I'd come off the ice and he'd make these comments, and I felt like he didn't like me. And I observed some of the behaviors, and it was just uncomfortable. And then I had this dynamic with their older team that I was this new rookie, and it was like there was a barrier there too. Like they treated me like I was a rookie, and there was other rookies on the team as well. So it was difficult. And I remember that I got some advice that I should just start meeting with that coach and having one-on-one meetings and just win him over. He loved video, so I started watching video with him after practice, and I started to see my play pick up. And then by the end of the year, when I had improved my performance, he was my biggest advocate. And it was a good lesson for me. And part of that year, another lesson was the first game I played, I got my nose broken in a fight, and I had a bad experience fighting in junior, where I didn't win a fight. And the next day in the papers, my picture was in the front page of the sports section that said those hands weren't made for fighting. I was very embarrassed, and it was my hometown, and so I had this fear of getting embarrassed fighting. And so 3 months went by in my first pro career, year pro, and I remember my mother came to visit, and she said, she asked me how things were going, and she said, Joe, how are things? And I looked at her, and I thought she'd give me some sympathy and say, I was going to tell her how it was a difficult season and how the coaches wanted me to fight. And I thought what she would say is, Joey, you hang tight, and at the end of the year, you come home and I'll take care of it. Don't worry. And what she said to me, I said, well, Mom, they want me to fight. And she said, well, I guess you better start fighting then. And then 2 games later, I was in my second pro fight, and I actually won the fight. And I realized that I had overcome the fear, and it really wasn't as bad as I was building it up to be in my mind. And then after that, I was fine. I was able to break through, and my performance went up, my confidence went up, and that was really overcoming those 2 barriers where it was a difference for me playing 1 year professional and then or 11 and winning a Stanley Cup. So that's the biggest adversity I faced, was in that first year pro.
Yeah. So going back to your mom, because I am a mom of a hockey player, and I think if he ever fought, I would like pass out. But your mom, was she your biggest advocate?
Yeah, my mom and dad both. Yeah. Dad drove me to the rink more than Mom did, but Mom was at every game, and they're both big advocates still in my life. And so, but Mom, she, ironically, when I was 12 years old and I was in a bit of a disagreement on the ice, she was next to the bench and in the stands, and it was a close, quarter rink. And I was like this, and I had cocked my fist, and I was going to punch the person that I was in the disagreement with. And she yelled from the stands to such an extent that it stopped me in my tracks, and everyone looked at her from both benches. And so the irony is that, that formed me in that year. And then I kind of refrained that anger and harnessed it. And then she was the one that said, now you have permission, go ahead. It's okay now. You're playing professional, and you're a grown up, and that's just part of the game. So, yeah.
I remember one time my son was playing, and he lost the game, and he skated off the ice. Like the whole team skated off the ice. And when he, I think as soon as he got out of the dressing room, I gave him one of the, you will win with grace and you will lose with grace. And the next time you will shake hands, and I don't care if your team does it. And I was just, and I made him cry. He was young, and he never forgot that. He shook hands, and he never forgot it. And recently I lost an election in a municipal, and I had to lose with grace. And my mind went right to that moment that I had with my son when he was 10. And he was there. When the election results came in, my son was right there. He's 18 now. I had to lose with grace. Oh, mother's words. So we talk a little bit about the principles of success. And I was wondering if you could give us your best principle of success and tell us a story that illustrates this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the principle, one of my values is humility. And the game of hockey is a great game. I believe it's the greatest game I've ever experienced. I'm biased, of course. But I played a lot of games. And for me, hockey is the best game because it reinforces humility over and over again. You can play, you can be the best team on paper and get on the ice, and a team with a lot less skill can beat you pretty easily if you're not on top of your game. So it reinforced this idea of you have to respect your opponent and bring it every single game if you want to have success. And then as an individual on a team, in order for me to play my best, I had to bring it every game as well in terms of preparation. And so that was instilled in me. And so preparation's huge. And humility was a big part of that. And I remember I had a coach early on in my career, and I say career, I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, and it was our team manager actually, and he was like a second father to me. He was a mentor to my dad, and he recognized that I had an ability that was unique in the game of hockey, and he pointed it out, and he was cautioning my father, and then hence I got the messaging through my dad. But I remember my parents sat me down and said, "Joe, you're good. We think you're a really good player." And it was just like an unusual conversation that I still remember. And, many conversations I forget. This one I remember from all those years back. And they sat me down and they said, "You're a really good player. But one thing that we want you to avoid, or a trap to avoid, is to be overconfident and to think that you're better than others." And they had seen that in other players that had ability. And they said that would be not a good thing for you to go down that path. And so that conversation just really reinforced the humility is important. And then I've carried that throughout my playing career, and that led to success. And I think it's a part of a necessity to have success and to be coachable. And like the situation where I was having that difficulty with fighting and having to overcome that obstacle, if I didn't have humility and if I wasn't coachable, then I never would have broke through that barrier. I never would have even got as far as I did if I wasn't coachable. So I see it all the time in leadership in what I do now. If somebody isn't coachable and they don't have if they're missing something, and when the time gets tough, like they just don't make it. And I had a conversation with somebody this morning actually about that, where I'm trying to encourage them and saying, you got to lean into your mentor and your coach and rely on them. But the moment you start to try to manage their expectations, and you're not being totally humble and open and honest with them, and you're trying to manage how they think you're doing, you're going to lose them and you're in trouble. So it's better just to say, I don't know what I'm doing in this situation. I need your help, and people will invest into you, and they want that honesty. But so I think that humility is really something I carry, and people have commented to me that that's what they see. And when they work with me, and I want to work with people that value that. Otherwise, we really kind of don't align.
Yeah, I was having a conversation today about coaching, and and I think there was a reference, but coaching the athlete, coaching the corporate athlete, like, you need to be coached. We forget, all our lives. I mean, yourself, you had a coach, and then we get into the corporate world, and we're like, I'll do it on my own, And so I appreciate the reference there. That was really good. So this is about failures and mistakes, because I think we learn more from our failures and mistakes than we do from our successes. So I'm wondering if you can share maybe if you had a failure, if you had a mistake, and what you learned from it, and how it actually probably was a success in your life.
Yeah, a failure. I think I failed. Marriage is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And we've been married for 18 years, and I'm always being refined through my relationship with Jessica. And I've made mistakes. I've failed. I've been blind to how I've treated my wife and treated Jessica in different times. And I think one of my biggest learnings is that I failed at putting her and helping her feel, and actually putting her first above career. And when I was a hockey player, that was my God was hockey. And that was before I became a Christian. And then my God became my God. But then arguably hockey and God were, I'm not sure which one was first. It was probably hockey. And then my wife was like third. And so she powered through that and was stuck by my side throughout all those years, thinking that after my hockey career was over that it would change. And it didn't. All I did was put another idol in place. And what I've learned is that our hearts are programmed to worship. And if we do not put God first and worship him alone, we'll replace it with something else. We'll replace it with a career, money, power, advice, and it's not healthy. And we will not get peace. We will not be blessed in what we're doing, and it won't benefit us or anyone else around us. And so it hurt my relationship with Jessica. So I've made that mistake, and now my mantra has been about just every day grounding myself. You reap what you sow. If you reap sparingly, you sow sparingly, or you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly, and the opposite of that. And so if I'm not investing time, energy, and thought into my relationship with my wife and how she's thinking and feeling, I can't expect that I'm going to sow abundantly. And that's what I've learned. And just, I made a mistake, and that's what I learned from it. And so it's been, and I was completely blind to it. Even though I would hear it, it just wouldn't sink in. So that's probably the biggest mistake. Failure is through that relationship. And that's why God uses our marriages to refine us and grow our character.
Yeah. Now I love the reap what you sow. I just used that last week. And I mean, like something like sales. If you don't go out there and keep going after sales and keep going, they'll never sow nothing. Like you got to go or you got to keep sowing to actually reap. And if you don't sow, there's no reap. But anyway, I want to ask you about where you were when you found your faith. So earlier I had asked you about a pivotal moment, and you had said, which one do you want to talk about? We talked about your professional. So where were you it sounds like you were done hockey, I think, but tell us, where was that for you? And that was a pivotal moment, I think.
Yeah. So when I was playing, I was still playing hockey. It was my fifth year. I had started my career in professional career and played on a number of teams. And I had my second season. So my first season, I fit in, tried to do everything I could to fit in with the team. I mentioned there were some struggles, and I was doing everything I could to fit in and survive. And then in my second, and I felt like I did that. I felt like I accomplished that I finally fit in. But I was not living a life that I was proud of. Like there was drinking, there was womanizing, going to I didn't like who I was anymore. And it was like just a bad, I was influenced, and I accepted it, and I did everything I could to fit in. And I didn't like who I was. And I had a friend, a teammate that joined the team, and he ended up becoming my roommate that year. And he was a Christian. And he said, when I remember just coming up a conversation, like, you're going to come out with us, you're going to go to the bar, are you going to do, or this is what we're doing. And he was like, I'll come, but I don't drink. And, he wasn't judgy. He didn't like preach. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, I'm a Christian. And I was like, I remember thinking to myself, well, who cares? Like, why does that matter? Like, I go to church at Christmas. Like, what's the deal? Big deal. And that was my honest thoughts. And it really irritated me though. And it struck a nerve, because I grew up going to church on Sundays, but then I worshiped the God of hockey. And so he lived with me, and it was a really positive witness to me. And then I had a couple of other Christian teammates over the next seasons. And I had one teammate that was playing on my team and then went off to another team and then became a Christian and came back. And I was like, he was different, a different person, a different creation. And I remember thinking, like, what is this Christian thing all about? I thought I was already there, and clearly I'm not. And then I kept going down that path, worshiping the God of hockey, and it was just unfulfilling. I was unhappy. I was just unhappy, and I felt empty. And I remember going to some chapels with the team, and I started to get connected with some of the ministry folks that were coming alongside us, that believed that God had called him to help hockey players, thankfully. And I just said one day, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to give up control. And it was in 2004, and I was 26 years old. And I just said, God, if you're real, and I believe God was real, but I said, I'm going to try Jesus out and really, make him and pray that prayer. And I started to read, and I just said, I'm going to surrender my hockey career. I'm tired of trying to do it on my own strength, and it's just beating me down, and it's just too hard. And I surrendered, and I said, God, I don't care if I don't play hockey next year. I'm okay with it, and I meant it. I'm done with that. Whatever you decide.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that it would be my last year. And so the pressure, I felt this weight lift off me, and I played the rest of the season, and I played well, and that was my faith. That's when things changed, and then that's when my NHL career started. It was the next season, but it was
Wow, that's a good pivot.
Mm.
That's a good story. I love. I appreciate you sharing the feeling, the emotions. I mean, you felt empty, and you didn't know why, or you did. I mean, it was you had put hockey as your God. Yeah, I mean, I get it as your God, and that switch, and it's like I give up. Like, what do you want to do with me? And he put you in the NHL. It's a lot of burden to let go of.
Yeah, it's a lot of burden, and God gives us the desires of our heart. And I felt like it was like, see, you would have been here sooner if you hadn't have been if you hadn't have been so stubborn, or and it was a lesson. It was like that freedom. And so, recently going through a similar situation, where not similar in like the actual sense, but similar in that I was trying to control a situation and make it happen on my own. And when I surrendered it and continuously surrender it, the doors start opening. Whereas before they're closing. And it was a similar situation where I had to relearn the lesson again, but it didn't take me as long. And I'm able to look and say, okay, I'm trying to control this. Just let it go. And if it's God's will, it's will. If it's not, it's not, and accept it. And so having to surrender and resurrender on a daily basis.
Yeah. I had my last podcast was with Dr. Rana Mustafa, and we talked about that transition of the pivot. And when something happens and you know how to, like, it happens, things happen, and you have to pivot out of it, or good or bad. And that transition, you get better at it. You recognize it, and you can, more quickly say, okay, God, I let go. So I appreciate that. At Leader Impact, we want to grow professionally, personally, and spiritually. For increasing impact, would you be willing to share an example of how the spiritual makes a practical difference in your life as a leader?
Oh, for sure. If I'm, I think God refines me in my quiet time, when I make the quiet time every day in prayer and listening to what He's calling me to do, and asking God, how can I take care of you today? What are the things that whatever's coming down the pipe today, what can I do to take care of your needs, knowing that He's going to take care of mine abundantly, and I just need to get out of my own way for that. So focusing on Him, and what that does for me as a leader is I get to see things in a different lens throughout the day. We see where people might need some encouragement, or they might be hurting, or how I can help them. And the situation yesterday where there's a leader that I was working with in a team environment, and I could tell there's like a disconnect for him in terms of that role. And then there's somebody else that's there that I know gets it and wants to invest in that individual, and helping him connect the dots that this is your gift here. This is how you're going to make it through this season and have success. And so I'm like, God wanted me to clarify for him, because I've had that same experience, and be able to share and invest and share that with somebody else. So it's definitely being grounded in God. Okay, what you've planned today, and you planned yesterday, so I could be prepared for today. and having that lens helps me to become a stronger leader, and have empathy for others. And at the end of the day, God is love, and when I can see it through God's eyes, and to be able to love others and let Him work through me, I'm always going to show up as a better leader for others. And and that doesn't mean that I've got it all figured out. I'm a broken person. I try to do, I'm surrendering daily and trying to get it on my own way, but it's whenever I can make time and have him refine me in the mornings before my day starts, and I can get into that mindset, I'm a much stronger leader because he's worked on my heart at the start of the day, and it's a better starting point for me.
Yeah, I love that. We definitely have to get out of our own way. So I have to ask you, with the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, this is a program that is sort of is nationwide. I would think like it's so. Would you? I'm not sure how to phrase this question, but because I know there's Christian coaches. I wouldn't say that EOS doesn't come off as that. You are, though. So do you ever have anyone that, back off on religion? I know I had a coach and they weren't, and they said something like, if you believe in that stuff. And I was like, you know what, we're not a good fit. And then, the next one was all about my faith. So my question is, does anyone ever go, whoa?
Most of my clients are not professing Christians.
Okay.
I have some that are, and God has drawn me some of my clients that are professing Christians. And I feel like he's called all of the clients I work with to me. I don't feel like any of them are by accident. And the doors that have closed are ones that never were really a good fit to begin with. And so I believe that to be true, that there's a reason why God has called me these individuals for whatever reason it might. So that's but I haven't had anyone say, we're not, or putting down my faith. I haven't had anyone put down faith, and so I would say most of them know that I'm a Christian and know that I'm, or religious, as they would probably describe it. And because I don't think I'm religious, I believe I'm a follower of Christ, and I don't associate with like I'm a hard, this denomination or that denomination. I'm a Christian, and I'm not. But you often get put in that religious category. But no, that's kind of, yeah. And God draws them all to me and opens the doors that He wants to have opened and the ones He wants to close. And I usually find out after meeting them that, oh yeah, this is why they're a good fit for me, because this is where they're at, and this will be a good relationship.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Thank you for answering that. I have 2 questions left. These are some basic questions I ask all our guests. LeaderImpact is dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. So as you continue to move through your own journey, have you considered what you want your faith legacy to be when you leave this world?
Yeah, I have. My legacy I'd like to leave is around generosity, and to have been generous with my time, talent, and treasure. I guess that's the parable of the talents. But that's what I want to use my time, talent, and treasure for eternity, blessings in eternity, for building up treasure in heaven. And that would be that's what I would want to leave as a legacy, whether that's financially speaking, of money that God entrusted with me that I use to help others through ministry, or what I've learned too is when I give, it could be an answered prayer for somebody that prayed for that, and they receive, and then they thank God, and He uses it to build their faith and confidence. So like that is another way that God will use our finances to bless, and in ways that I'm sure I won't even realize until I'm in heaven what that would look like. But that's really what I want to be. Legacy is just, how can I use my time, talent, treasure to build up eternal treasure.
It's really good. And the last question is, what brings you the greatest joy?
Greatest joy. It's a good question. I think worship is my favorite activity. I mean that might be a really corny Christian thing to say, but it's that's I'll say that and then I'll answer something else as well. But that is I love to worship is just awesome. And then
And
the
for people who
second,
don't know what do you mean by that?
yeah, okay. So worship for me is singing and being in a group of, whether it's at church or at a concert, a faith praise and worship night, that sort of thing. Like
Okay.
I love to worship with other believers and just be free to worship and not feel self-conscious. The other favorite, my other thing that brings me joy would be to watch my daughter play hockey. I love to watch her team play, and I'm very competitive still through that lens of wanting us to win, but having to be a good sport and be humble when we lose.
Yeah.
But I love to win. That brings me a lot of joy. And so watching her play hockey is very satisfying. And so that's a joy. And I love doing the work I do too. I love to be able to, when I can see teams grow and make progress and have wins, and to me that's very fulfilling, brings me a lot of joy and satisfaction when I can use my talents and time and energy to positively impact other people and they appreciate it. So bringing value, I think, to other people gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It's been a great half hour, Joe. I appreciate you just taking the time and just sharing with us. There was some really great answers, simple, and I'm thankful. I'm always thankful to show up here. So I love it. If anybody wants to reach out to you, if they or engage with you, what is the best way?
Through LinkedIn would probably be the most effective, or on my microsite through the EOS Worldwide, or my email and contact form. You could reach out to me there, and that message will come direct to my inbox. So through my microsite on EOS Worldwide, if you Google my name, you could easily find it, or through connecting with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. LinkedIn's easy, and we will find you. Joe, just thank you again for sharing the last half hour with us.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
All right. Well, if you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. And if you are not yet part of Leader Impact and would like to find out more and grow your leadership, find our podcast page on our website at leaderimpact.ca and check out our free leadership assessment. You'll also find on our webpage Chapter 1 of Braden Douglas's book, Becoming a Leader of Impact. You can also check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca, or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com or get in touch with us by email, info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or a review. This will help other global leaders find our podcast. Thank you for engaging with us, and remember, impact starts with you.